Commander Alexandra Hayes had one rule during classified operations: never break cover, no matter what. But when local police arrested her at a Maine shooting range for refusing to show ID, she faced a choice between revealing her Navy SEAL identity or spending the night in jail until an Admiral walked into the courtroom. Pine Ridge Shooting Range sat nestled among the dense forests of coastal Maine, its weathered buildings and gravel parking lot suggesting a facility that prioritized function over appearance. The smell of gunpowder mixed with pine needles in the crisp autumn air, while the distant sound of waves crashing against rocky shores provided a constant backdrop to the sharp crack of rifle fire. The range itself stretched across several hundred yards of cleared land, with targets positioned at distances that challenged even experienced marksmen. Most visitors came for recreational shooting or hunting practice, but the facility's remote location and excellent sightlines also attracted more serious practitioners who valued privacy and precision. Alexandra Hayes moved through the shooting range with the fluid efficiency of someone for whom weapons were tools rather than toys. At 34, she possessed the lean, athletic build of a professional operator, but her casual civilian clothing, jeans, hiking boots, and a simple jacket gave no indication of her true profession. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her eyes held the steady focus of someone who had learned to hit targets under conditions far more challenging than a peaceful Maine morning. What distinguished Alexandra from other skilled shooters wasn't just her accuracy. It was the methodical way she approached each shot, accounting for wind speed, humidity, and atmospheric pressure with calculations that seemed instinctive. Her rifle, a precision instrument worth more than most people's cars, was handled with the reverence of someone who understood that in her line of work, equipment failure meant mission failure, and mission failure could mean death. The other shooters at the range that morning gave her respectful distance, recognizing expertise when they saw it, but having no idea they were watching one of the Navy's most classified operators maintain the skills that kept America safe from threats most people would never know existed. Alexandra's presence at Pine Ridge was part of a carefully planned training exercise designed to maintain her operational readiness while providing cover for a classified mission that had brought her to Maine. But her extraordinary shooting skills and obvious professional competence had attracted exactly the kind of attention that special operations personnel were trained to avoid. Her refusal to provide identification when questioned by local law enforcement wasn't arrogance. It was operational security, protecting both her mission and her identity from exposure that could compromise ongoing national security operations and endanger the lives of other operators in the field. The confrontation that would test Alexandra's commitment to operational security began when Detective Ray Wells of the Cumberland County Sheriff's Department arrived at Pine Ridge to investigate. Reports of unusual shooting activity that had concerned some local residents. Wells, a 20-year veteran of law enforcement with military experience that had taught him to recognize professional competence, immediately noticed that one shooter at the range was operating at a level far beyond recreational marksmanship. Alexandra's decision to continue her training despite the police presence was based on mission requirements that superseded personal convenience. Her assignment in Maine was time-sensitive, and maintaining her shooting proficiency was essential to operational success. She had calculated that a low-profile approach would attract less attention than canceling her training and potentially compromising her cover. But Wells's approach to her position was professional and persistent, driven by legitimate law enforcement concerns about someone displaying military-level shooting skills without apparent authorization or identification. His request to see her credentials put Alexandra in the impossible position of choosing between mission security and legal compliance. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to see some identification and your permit for that rifle," Wells said with the polite authority that marked experienced law enforcement officers. Alexandra's response to Wells's request was carefully calculated to provide minimum information while maintaining her operational cover. Her plan was to deflect official attention without creating a confrontation that would escalate the situation or draw additional scrutiny to her presence in Maine. "Officer, I'm just here for some target practice," Alexandra replied calmly, her tone respectful but non-committal. "I don't think there's any law against shooting at a licensed range." Her strategy was based on the assumption that local law enforcement would accept reasonable explanations and move on to more pressing matters, leaving her free to complete her training and continue her mission. She had identification documents that would satisfy routine inquiries, but using them would create a paper trail that could compromise operational security if accessed by hostile intelligence services. But Wells's military background had taught him to recognize evasion, and Alexandra's obvious competence with weapons that exceeded civilian sporting needs triggered his professional instincts. His follow-up questions became more specific and harder to deflect without providing information that could compromise her mission. "Ma'am, that's a pretty sophisticated piece of equipment you're using. Mind if I ask what kind of shooting you're training for?" Alexandra's attempt to end the conversation politely was met with increasing persistence from Wells, whose law enforcement training had taught him that evasive answers often indicated larger problems that required investigation. Her refusal to provide specific information about her background or purpose at the range only heightened his suspicions. "I appreciate your interest, officer, but I'm not required to discuss my personal activities with law enforcement unless I'm suspected of a crime," Alexandra said, her tone remaining respectful but firm. The response was technically correct but practically problematic, as it established an adversarial dynamic that made peaceful resolution more difficult. Wells's reaction was immediate and professional, reflecting his understanding that individuals who knew their legal rights that precisely often had reasons for avoiding official scrutiny. "Ma'am, you're absolutely right about your legal rights," Wells replied, "but I'm investigating reports of unusual activity, and your shooting demonstrates capabilities that go well beyond recreational marksmanship. I'm going to need some cooperation here." Alexandra faced a decision that would define the rest of her mission: provide enough information to satisfy Wells's inquiry while protecting her operational security, or maintain complete cover at the risk of legal complications that could derail her assignment entirely. The situation escalated when Alexandra's continued refusal to provide identification prompted Wells to call for backup, transforming a routine inquiry into a potential arrest situation. 2 additional Cumberland County deputies arrived within minutes. their presence creating exactly the kind of official attention that special operations personnel were trained to avoid. "Ma'am," Wells said, with the formal tone that indicated his patience was exhausted, "I'm going to need you to provide identification right now, or I'll have to place you under arrest for obstruction of a police investigation." Alexandra's training had prepared her for this scenario, but the reality of facing arrest while maintaining operational cover was more challenging than any simulation. Her mission parameters were clear: protect operational security at all costs, even if it meant accepting legal consequences that could be resolved later through official channels. "Officer, I understand your position, but I'm not able to provide the information you're requesting," Alexandra replied, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Wells's response was swift and professional. "Ma'am, turn around and place your hands behind your back. You're under arrest for obstruction of justice and failure to provide identification when lawfully requested." The handcuffs clicked into place as Alexandra made the conscious decision to protect her mission rather than her personal freedom. Alexandra's arrest at Pine Ridge triggered automatic protocols within the intelligence community that she couldn't have anticipated. The shooting range, unknown to local law enforcement, was monitored by federal agencies as part of a broader surveillance network designed to identify potential threats and track unusual activities that might indicate terrorist reconnaissance or hostile intelligence operations. Frank Morrison, the range safety officer who had been observing Alexandra's shooting with professional interest, made a phone call that would change the trajectory of the entire situation. Morrison, a retired Marine sniper whose civilian job provided cover for ongoing intelligence activities, recognized that Alexandra's arrest could compromise operations that extended far beyond her individual mission. "We have a problem," Morrison reported to his handler at the Defense Intelligence Agency. "Local law enforcement just arrested our operator. The situation is escalating beyond what we can control at the local level." The response was immediate and comprehensive, with federal agencies mobilizing resources to address a situation that threatened to expose classified operations and compromise national security. Within an hour of Alexandra's arrest, representatives from Homeland Security and the FBI were en route to Cumberland County, their intervention setting the stage for a confrontation that would demonstrate the complex relationships between local law enforcement and federal security operations. The arrival of federal agents at the Cumberland County Jail created immediate tension between local and federal law enforcement, with jurisdictional disputes threatening to complicate an already complex situation. Agent Sarah Chen from Homeland Security and Agent Michael Torres from the FBI presented credentials that commanded respect, but provided no explanations that satisfied Wells's need to understand what he had stumbled into. "Detective Wells," Agent Chen said, with the professional courtesy that marked federal-local law enforcement interactions, "we need to discuss the individual you arrested this morning. This situation involves matters of national security that require federal oversight." Wells's response reflected his frustration with being excluded from an investigation that had originated with his own legitimate law enforcement activities. "Agent Chen, I arrested someone for obstruction of justice at a shooting range. If there's more to this story, I need to know what I'm dealing with." But the federal agent's inability to provide specific information about Alexandra's identity or mission created an impasse that could only be resolved through higher authorities. The situation was further complicated by Alexandra's continued refusal to provide any information that could clarify her status or purpose, leaving local and federal law enforcement to navigate a bureaucratic maze without clear guidance about how to proceed. The complexity of Alexandra's situation became clear during her arraignment, where the convergence of local legal procedures and federal security concerns created a unique challenge for all parties involved. Judge Patricia Hendricks, a veteran of the Cumberland County Bench, found herself presiding over a case that involved classified information and jurisdictional disputes that exceeded her normal experience with criminal proceedings. Alexandra's court-appointed attorney, David Park, struggled to represent a client who couldn't provide information about her background or explain the circumstances that had led to her arrest. His preparation was limited to the basic facts of the case, and his client's continued insistence that she couldn't discuss her identity or activities without compromising matters of national security. The federal agent's presence in the courtroom added another layer of complexity, as their obvious interest in the proceedings suggested that Alexandra's case involved issues that went far beyond a simple obstruction charge. Judge Hendricks recognized that she was dealing with a situation that required careful handling to avoid compromising either legal procedures or national security interests. The stage was set for a confrontation that would test the boundaries between civilian legal authority and military operational security. The courtroom atmosphere changed dramatically when the bailiff announced the arrival of an unexpected visitor. All rise for Rear Admiral James Mitchell, United States Navy. The appearance of a flag officer in full-dress uniform at a routine arraignment was unprecedented in Cumberland County legal history, and the Admiral's presence immediately commanded attention from everyone present. Admiral Mitchell's bearing and obvious authority transformed the proceeding from a local criminal matter into something approaching a military tribunal. His request to approach the bench was granted immediately by Judge Hendricks, who recognized that the situation had escalated beyond normal civilian legal procedures. "Your Honor," Admiral Mitchell said in a voice that carried the authority of decades of naval command, "I have documents that will clarify this situation and resolve the charges against the defendant." The sealed envelope that Admiral Mitchell presented to Judge Hendricks contained classification markings that indicated the highest levels of government security. As the judge reviewed the contents, her expression shifted from confusion to understanding to something approaching awe as she realized the true nature of the case before her. "Mr. Park," Judge Hendricks addressed the defense attorney, "your client's identity and activities are confirmed by these documents. The charges against her are dismissed immediately, and all records of this proceeding are to be sealed under federal security provisions." The transformation in the courtroom was immediate and dramatic, as everyone present began to understand that they had been dealing with someone whose true identity and mission were far more significant than anyone had imagined. Admiral Mitchell's next words would provide context for Alexandra's arrest and demonstrate the complex realities of special operations in an era where national security threats could emerge anywhere, including peaceful Maine shooting ranges. "Ladies and gentlemen," the Admiral announced to the assembled courtroom, "the individual you know as the defendant is Commander Alexandra Hayes, United States Navy, operating under classified orders as part of Operation Silent Harbor, a counterterrorism mission that has successfully prevented a significant attack on American soil. The revelation sent shock waves through the courtroom as the implications became clear. Alexandra's presence at Pine Ridge hadn't been recreational or suspicious. It had been part of a carefully planned operation designed to protect American lives from threats that most people would never know existed. Commander Hayes's detention by local authorities was an unforeseen consequence of maintaining deep cover. Admiral Mitchell continued. Her refusal to provide identification was not obstruction of justice, but adherence to operational security protocols that protect both her mission and the lives of other operators in the field. Detective Wells, who had initiated the entire sequence of events, found himself struggling to process the revelation that his routine law enforcement activity had intersected with a classified military operation. His arrest of Alexandra had been professionally appropriate based on the information available to him, but the broader context made it clear that he had been operating without knowledge of factors that would have changed his entire approach to the situation. Judge Hendricks's dismissal of all charges was accompanied by orders sealing the court records and restricting discussion of the proceedings. Measures designed to protect ongoing operations and maintain the security that had been temporarily compromised by Alexandra's arrest. The climactic moment came when Admiral Mitchell addressed Alexandra directly, acknowledging both her professional competence and her commitment to mission security under difficult circumstances. "Commander Hayes," the Admiral said formally, "your adherence to operational protocols under challenging circumstances reflects the highest standards of naval service. Your mission has been completed successfully, and your cover has been maintained despite these unexpected complications." Alexandra's response was equally formal, reflecting the military bearing that she had been forced to suppress during her civilian detention. "Thank you, sir. I regret any complications my operational requirements may have caused for local law enforcement." The exchange between Admiral and Commander provided a glimpse into the world of special operations, where individual sacrifice and professional competence served larger missions that remained hidden from public view. Alexandra's willingness to face arrest rather than compromise her mission demonstrated the kind of dedication that characterized America's most elite military personnel. The transformation from arrested suspect to recognized naval officer was complete, but the broader implications of the incident would have lasting effects on everyone who had been involved in the case. Admiral Mitchell's intervention resolved the immediate legal crisis, but created new challenges related to operational security and the need to protect classified information while satisfying the legitimate concerns of local law enforcement. His preparation for addressing these challenges included briefing local officials on the broader context of Alexandra's mission without compromising ongoing operations or revealing details that could endanger other personnel. The Admiral's approach was to provide enough information to prevent future conflicts between special operations and local law enforcement, while maintaining the security protocols that protected national interests. This required careful coordination with federal agencies and local officials to establish procedures that would allow classified operations to continue without unnecessary interference from well-meaning but uninformed civilian authorities. Detective Wells, whose professional competence and discretion had been noted by federal observers, was offered an opportunity to participate in a special liaison program that would help local law enforcement recognize and appropriately handle situations involving classified operations. The program represented a new approach to civil-military cooperation that acknowledged the reality that special operations often occurred in civilian environments where local law enforcement might encounter classified personnel. Despite the resolution of her legal situation, Alexandra experienced moments of uncertainty about whether her mission had been compromised by the public nature of her arrest and the subsequent federal intervention. Her training had emphasized the importance of maintaining cover at all costs, and the exposure of her identity, even in a controlled legal setting, represented a potential security breach that could affect future operations. Her concerns were both professional and personal because she understood that special operations effectiveness depended on anonymity and surprise, and personal because she had invested years in developing the skills and reputation that made her valuable to the Navy's most classified programs. But Admiral Mitchell's assurance that her cover story had been maintained and that the legal proceedings would be sealed convinced Alexandra that the mission's objectives had been achieved despite the unexpected complications created by her encounter with local law enforcement. The formal resolution of Alexandra's case took place in Judge Hendrick's chambers, where Admiral Mitchell provided additional context about Operation Silent Harbor and its significance to national security. The pressure of handling classified information in a civilian legal setting was intense for everyone involved. As they navigated the complex intersection of military operations and civilian legal procedures, Judge Hendricks's role in sealing the court records and restricting access to information about the case was crucial to maintaining operational security while satisfying legal requirements for due process. Her cooperation with federal authorities demonstrated the kind of civil-military partnership that was essential for protecting national security interests while preserving civilian legal authority. Detective Wells's participation in the briefing provided him with context that helped him understand the broader implications of his encounter with Alexandra and the importance of the mission she had been conducting in Maine. The challenge of explaining classified operations to civilian authorities without compromising security required careful balance between transparency and protection of sensitive information. Admiral Mitchell's briefing included enough detail to satisfy legal requirements while maintaining the operational security that protected ongoing missions and personnel. The most difficult aspect of the resolution was ensuring that local law enforcement understood the importance of discretion without feeling excluded from information that affected their ability to perform their duties effectively. Wells's questions about how to handle similar situations in the future reflected legitimate concerns about the intersection of federal operations and local law enforcement responsibilities. The solution involved establishing communication protocols that would allow local authorities to verify the status of individuals involved in classified operations without compromising mission, security, or exposing personnel to unnecessary risks. The climactic moment of the resolution came when Admiral Mitchell presented Alexandra with a commendation for her performance during Operation Silent Harbor, recognizing both her technical competence and her commitment to mission security under challenging circumstances. "Commander Hayes," the Admiral announced in the presence of Judge Hendricks and Detective Wells, "your successful completion of Operation Silent Harbor has prevented a terrorist attack that would have resulted in significant loss of American lives. Your professionalism and dedication under difficult circumstances reflect the highest traditions of naval service." The commendation ceremony, conducted in the unusual setting of a judge's chambers, provided closure for an incident that had tested the boundaries between civilian and military authority while demonstrating the complex realities of modern special operations. Detective Wells's presence at the ceremony represented the successful integration of local law enforcement into the broader security framework that protected classified operations, while Judge Hendricks's participation demonstrated the civilian legal system's ability to accommodate national security requirements without compromising judicial independence. The ceremony concluded with Admiral Mitchell's announcement that Detective Wells had been selected for the Special Liaison Program that would help local law enforcement agencies recognize and appropriately handle encounters with classified personnel. The program represented a new model for civil-military cooperation that acknowledged the reality that special operations often occurred in civilian environments. "Detective Wells," the Admiral said, "your professionalism and discretion during this incident have demonstrated the qualities we look for in local law enforcement partners. Your participation in our liaison program will help prevent future conflicts while maintaining the security that protects both operations and personnel." Alexandra's final words to Wells reflected the mutual respect that had developed between the two professionals despite the unusual circumstances of their meeting. "Detective, you were doing your job, and you did it well. I hope our paths cross again under better circumstances." The handshake that followed represented more than personal courtesy. It symbolized the successful resolution of a complex situation that could have compromised national security while damaging relationships between federal and local law enforcement. The resolution of Alexandra's case created immediate changes in how federal agencies coordinated with local law enforcement when classified operations intersected with civilian environments. New protocols were established to provide local authorities with enough information to make appropriate decisions without compromising operational security or exposing classified personnel to unnecessary risks. Detective Wells's recruitment into the Special Liaison Program led to similar initiatives in other jurisdictions where special operations might encounter local law enforcement. The program provided training that helped civilian authorities recognize indicators of classified activities while maintaining the discretion necessary to protect ongoing missions. Pine Ridge Shooting Range, revealed to be part of a broader network of facilities used for special operations training, received enhanced security measures and formal recognition of its role in supporting national defense activities. The facility's operator, Frank Morrison, was officially acknowledged for his contributions to operational security and his role in identifying and supporting classified personnel. The incident became a case study in civil-military relations and the challenges of conducting special operations in civilian environments. Military academies and law enforcement training programs used Alexandra's case to illustrate the importance of communication and cooperation between different levels of government and law enforcement. Alexandra's successful completion of Operation Silent Harbor, despite the complications created by her arrest, demonstrated the effectiveness of special operations training and the importance of maintaining operational security under all circumstances. Her case became an example of how individual dedication and professional competence could overcome unexpected challenges while achieving mission objectives. The liaison program that grew out of Detective Wells's involvement became a model for other regions, creating a network of local law enforcement officers who could serve as bridges between civilian authorities and federal security operations. The program's success led to expanded cooperation between military and civilian agencies in addressing national security threats. 6 months after the courtroom confrontation that had exposed her identity, Alexandra returned to Pine Ridge for advanced training, her cover story intact and her mission record enhanced by her performance during Operation Silent Harbor. Detective Wells, now a full participant in the liaison program, was present for a training exercise that demonstrated how local and federal authorities could work together to support classified operations. "Commander," Wells said, as they watched new operators practice the same precision shooting that had first attracted his attention, "I'm glad we figured out we were on the same side." Alexandra's response reflected the mutual respect that had grown from their unusual first encounter. "Detective, we were always on the same side. We just didn't know it at the time."